Hello and thank you, very important to the returning subscribers. To the new viewers, this is Hamu254 and feel welcomed. Sit down, enjoy, watch, like, share, comment, and don't forget to subscribe. I am bringing you some water and some juice. Thank you.
I'm with Michael Asher. He is a writer, a historian, and he is also a deep ecologist. He has lived many lives, I can say that, because he has lived as a tourist, he has lived as a nomad, he has lived many lives indeed. So, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
You good?
I'm very good. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you so much and feel welcome.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah. So maybe you can introduce yourself, tell the viewers who you are maybe.
Okay, well, I was born in England. I'm from England, and for the early part of my life, I wanted nothing more than to be a soldier. I wanted to be in the military. And when I left school at the age of 18, I joined the army. I was served in the parachute regiment, which was a kind of elite unit, very, very tough to get in. Only 1 in 4 people actually passed the selection for the parachute regiment. And I was in action with after I passed the selection course. In fact, the first thing that happened was my best friend, who was also 18 years old, was shot dead during the training by accident. It was a training exercise, and he was shot dead by accident and died the same night, and just standing next to me, really. And that was quite a shock. That was my first introduction to sort of sudden death, and that had a lasting impact on me. But anyway, I did pass the selection course. I went into action with the parachute regiment, and I saw another 11 comrades killed, mostly by radio control bombs. And that was quite a sobering experience, of course, but also I was quite proud to have passed the selection course. But from then I went on to the Special Forces, the SAS regiment, and that was even tougher to get in, and it was quite a different thing, because to get into the Special Forces, it's all about individual determination. You know, you don't work as a team, you're set off in the mountains on your own with all your equipment. You have to cover maybe 50 kilometers, and it's dark and it's cold, and you have to cross rivers, and you have to navigate with a map and a compass, carrying these tremendous sort of weights on your back. And that goes on for day after day, and each day it gets harder and harder and harder. And so when I finally passed, I mean, I felt very, very proud to have done that, because as I said, only 1 in 10 people actually get through it. So I did feel it was a very, it was a great personal achievement, I think. But as that was just the selection course, and eventually I got really disillusioned with the military life. I didn't think it was a way I wanted to spend my whole life. I mean, I'd learned quite a bit being in the military, and it was a great challenge, and as I said, I learned a lot, but it wasn't the way I wanted to spend my life. And so I eventually left the army, and I saw an advertisement for volunteer teachers in the Sudan, as it happened. And I applied for the job. I was told they didn't need any previous experience. I actually had a degree in English by that time, and they gave me the job, and I went out to Sudan. And then that was how I came to Africa. And I loved the Sudan, I loved the people. From the very first day, I thought I was in the most interesting country in the world, and that's the way it turned out.
So thank you so much for that introduction. But maybe there is these youth that maybe want to join the army, and they have heard what you have talked about the army, and maybe like the work of volunteering, because you have said like you came to Africa through a post that you saw people volunteering to teach English in Africa, right? Yeah. So like that's how you came to Africa. So maybe that these people first that they fear volunteering work. Maybe people say, oh, I cannot do like something that is for free, I cannot do something that I am not paid good and all those stuff. So maybe what can you tell them as we begin?
Well, personally, I think that when I volunteered as a teacher in Africa, it was the best thing I ever did. It really changed my life because I found myself in a country at that time, and this is 40 years ago. In Sudan, there were virtually no roads. There was just one road, actually, one asphalt road from Khartoum to Port Sudan. In many places, there was no electricity. The town I lived in, El Janina, which is right on the border with Chad, it's over 600 kilometers from the capital, Khartoum. Sudan is a big country. And had no running water, it had no electricity. In fact, if we kept water I lived in a mud house, and we kept the water in a big earthenware pot called the zir. And if you wanted water, you had to go into the street and call a donkey man who brought water from the well, and he would come into your house and pour water into your big pot. And the pot was great because it kept the water really cool. Not really freezing cold like in a fridge, but just the right temperature of coolness, because of course the pot is porous and it keeps the water cool in that way. So that's how we got water. No electricity, we used oil lamps in the evening. Nobody in the town had electricity. Well, one or two people had private generators, but that was all. There were very few cars in the town. But every day I would go to the market. Everyone was really friendly, and that was the other thing. People really looked after each other. They're extremely friendly. You could talk to anyone. And in fact, that's how I learned Arabic, just talking to people in the market. They were always ready to speak to you. And you would see these great camel caravans coming into the town every day. These beautiful young nomad girls with the long hair, riding the camels, and men on horses carrying spears, riding into the town. And I would go up and talk to them and ask where they come from. Mostly they come across the border from Chad and across the Sahara Desert, and this was actually in the Sahara Desert, or on the edge of the Sahara Desert. So it was really wonderful. I mean, it was like being in a different world, like something from the Arabian Nights or these stories that I'd read as a child, and I really loved it there. It was a completely different place from the one I'd grown up in. And of course, I'd grown up in England, in a place with a lot of motor cars and machines and traffic lights and all these things, but here suddenly I was in a world without machines, and it was a world where everyone, as I said, everyone was friendly. There was a sense of community. Everybody looked after each other. Everybody was friendly, and they didn't depend for their lives on machines. So that was something that that really impressed me anyway.
Oh, thank you so much. So I think the first lesson we have learned there is that from England, where you had a much better life than where you came to, right? Because you came to a place in our eyes, in normal eyes, when someone looks in it with their normal eyes, they may say you came from a place that there were machines, there were vehicles, traffic lights, there were electricity, mobile phones, or anything that was there with the communication. But now you have come to a place where you have said you are living in a mud house, right? And then you are using the oil lamp to lamp during the night. You are fetching water from maybe the donkey man who's coming with the water, and maybe you get it from there. Then I think to the youth, this is the first lesson you should learn, because many youth think you can always start, you can't go down. For example, I am in level B. For example, my life is a middle class. I cannot go back to lower class to start my life there. But you have heard that our guest today here, Michael Usher, started his life after he was already up. He went down again, where he wanted to know what he really wanted in his life. He did what he really liked in his life. The way he saw the life there down is the way he liked it. So for you youth, maybe you might be struggling like now, you know, like maybe I have learned to university, I cannot maybe do mjengo work with like the building work, I cannot do conductor work, I have my degrees, but you have heard you can start from down. You can even like you can go from an apartment and you go live in slums, but start there and then life will open up. And this you'll get it by the end of this session, because indeed much more is coming. So maybe I might ask, what motivated you a lot, like to live your life like after maybe now you have become a teacher, right, in Sudan. So after you have become a teacher, you left that life of teaching, and then like because first, please can you maybe tell us, you said that where in Sudan you learned Arabic because people were very friendly.
Yeah, that's
So
true, yeah.
maybe you can tell us maybe how many languages do you speak right now?
Well, 5 languages.
5 languages, maybe to be specific a bit.
Sorry?
To be specific maybe.
Well, Arabic, Swahili, Italian. My wife is Italian, my children speak Italian. French, and English.
English, right. Right.
Yeah.
That's really good.
Yeah.
So if you are there outside and maybe you know, if you are Kenyan maybe, or you know just 2 languages, maybe like English and your mother tongue, you can add a language. You can add a language. Indeed, like adding a language, it will you can say it will add flavor to your certificates, because right now everyone has a degree, everyone has a certificate, everyone has a diploma, everyone has a master's. So maybe by learning that one language, the French language, the Arabic language, the Spanish language, any other language, it might be an open up to you to get a mighty job, or to get something that will give you something that is good, or something that is mighty to your pocket. Thank you. So maybe like you have told us like you started interacting with the nomads.
Yes. Well, when I lived in Janina, I had my own camels because, as I said, there were no cars. The school I worked at was actually a long way from where I lived, and all the teachers who worked there, they went either on donkeys, horses, or camels. So I had my own camels. I actually had a horse at one time, but I had camels at other times. And I used the camels to ride to school. And the school, as I said, had no electricity, no running water, but the school building was in a very huge area where there was grass, there were trees, so you could leave your horse, your donkey, or your camel in this big yard, and it could wander around all day eating the grass. You know, so that was good, and so I got used to camels. And as I said, I used to see these nomads coming into the town every day, and I was very curious about them. And eventually, I used to go and visit them sometimes, and the weekends or my days off, I would go and visit nomad camps around the town, riding my camel. I found them very, very hospitable. I mean, they would always welcome a guest. And for them, this is something I learned, that generosity and hospitality, and I'll say more about this later, they're absolute qualities that you must have. And if you don't show generosity and hospitality, it's a great disgrace, aib, as they would call it. Okay, so if someone turns up to their camp, they will offer him or her, you know, everything that they have, the best of everything they have. If they have meat, they will offer you meat. They will slaughter a goat for you. If they have a chicken, they'll slaughter the chicken. If they don't have any of those, they will just offer you asida, which is something like ugali, the same kind of thing. Camel's milk, they will offer you the best of everything that they have. And they will make a place where you could sleep for the night. And they'll really insist that you stay. I mean, it's not a matter of, you know, for them, hospitality is more of a right than it's almost like a right. It's something people expect to be given and will always be given by the nomads.
Oh, amazing. So maybe you have mentioned that you had a car. You know, these days, like maybe we can say like in schools right now, you see a teacher, someone coming with maybe like let's say a Toyota Corolla, someone coming with a Prado, someone coming with another type of a car. So maybe with the camels, the donkeys, and the horses, were there classes? Were there like someone, if they want to show themselves, maybe that show off, that classy? If someone want to show themselves, maybe what could they prefer between the donkey, the camel, and the horse, maybe?
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't. If someone has a nice horse, it's, oh, look at my horse. It's not well, they wouldn't say that anyway, because, for the nomads, you never say, oh, you have a nice camel. And you would never say, you have a nice child, you're a beautiful child. You don't say that to nomads, because for them, if you say that, it's putting the evil eye on whatever it is. So you never, if you say, oh, that camel's really nice, and say, Matasa, like this, you're not supposed to say it.
You're not supposed to say that,
And I think that has a very important function, because it stops people showing off.
Yeah, true.
True. Because if nobody is allowed to say, oh, you have a beautiful camel, or you have a beautiful child, then nobody can really show off about it.
So guys, make sure you don't boost, leave the pride. Don't be like the boosting, the show off, leave it. Just leave it. Because like, for example, these days, I have asked you that because these days, for example, you'll see in TikTok, Facebook, and everywhere, when someone has a good car, or they buy a car, maybe even if it's not that good, but they want to show it to everyone. But they don't know that when they give birth to a kid, these days, even like a young, like I can say, a toddler, they are being shown off on the internet, like at TikToks and everywhere, all those things. But they don't know in Islam, we are being taught like al-ainu haq, the eye has a right and the tongue has a right. So for example, that saying, oh, you have a good thing, oh, you have this, it might be the end of the thing. So I think that's why indeed the nomads, they were saying like, they were maybe warning people like, you should not compliment about their things, you should not, because like, that saying, for example, I say, oh, you have a good phone, oh, you have an iPhone 15. That might be the end. Maybe you go and the iPhone 15 maybe get lost, or maybe it get damaged. So I think that one among the reasons why they didn't like that. And then also we might think of another thing. It reduced the people show off, because whenever someone shows off, I think God stops blessing them. The blessings they decreases a lot. So with the nomads, they didn't have that show off, and that's a lesson. You as a youth, you as an old person, you have a kid, you should teach your kids that, because it will really help them. Anyway, I would like maybe to go to the next question. You have said that sometimes you used to go to the nomads, you spend the weekend there. Indeed, like you have said, the hospitality they had, it was like we can call it like it was like a must for them to give you the hospitality. So, what is maybe the best part about you living with the nomads, and how did it maybe change your life living with the nomads?
Okay, so I should add that I actually, after 3 years working as a teacher in Sudan, I decided to give up my job as a teacher, and I went to live full-time with a nomad tribe, and this was the most remote nomad tribe, and there are many nomad tribes in northern Sudan, but this was the Kababish. It was the one of the most well-known, but the most remote tribe, probably. Their territory was in North Kordofan, but they ranged right deeply into the Sahara Desert, almost as far as Libya and as far as the Egyptian border. And so they were real desert nomads, and that's why I chose them to go and live with. And so I lived with them full time. I lived with them as one of them. I dressed like them. I spoke their language. I already knew Arabic when I went to live with them. Of course, they spoke a particular dialect, which I had to learn. It wasn't so different from the dialect that I already knew. And so I lived with them as one of them, riding camels, doing what they did. I did the same work that they did, herding the camels, herding the goats, watering the camels. I accompanied them with a salt caravan. They used to go deep into the desert to bring back rock salt. It's called atroun in Arabic. It's not the kind of salt you have with your meal, which is white salt. This is a sort of red colour. But it's salt, and they used that. They needed that for their animals because the animals actually need to eat salt, and if they don't get it, they will die. So that was very important for the nomads. And I accompanied them on their salt caravans. Sometimes they would take herds of camels for sale in Egypt, which took about. It's called a very ancient caravan route called the Darb al-Arba'in, the 40 days road, and that would take. Well, it usually took more than 40 days to get there, so it's a very long journey that I accompanied them several times on that journey. So I actually lived with them as one of them, and that was the most interesting experience of my life. I lived with them for 3 years. In that time, I never spoke English. I only spoke Arabic, and it was to the extent where I used to dream in Arabic when I was with them. So, and in all that time, never saw a motor car. I never saw a policeman. Never saw anyone from the government. Just those people lived this very self-contained life. I mean, they did move around, they didn't just stay in one place because they were nomads. But most of them had never been in a city, never been in a motor car. You know, they didn't have any modern technology, no television, there were no computers in those days anyway, this is 40 years ago, but they didn't have any modern technology at all. They lived the kind of life they've been living for thousands of years.
And maybe you have just said that you didn't see government in so does it mean it's kind of they didn't live political life?
That's true. They didn't live a political life. In fact, they didn't even know the name of the president. I mean, I remember once I had a £10 Sudanese note in my hand with a picture of the then president, Japhani Mary, and one of the nomads said to me, "Who's that man on the money?" And I said, "Well, it's the president." You know, he said, "What do you mean the president? You know, we don't have a president." You know? And for example, if you said they were Sudanese, they would say, "No, we're not Sudanese, we're Arabs." You know, the Sudanese are those people who live in the villages. I mean, they did interact with villages because there were villages on the edge of the desert where they would sell livestock, sometimes a camel, sometimes sheep and goats more often. Sometimes they would sell milk, camel's milk. They would sell animal skins. And with the money they got, they would buy grain, sorghum grain, durum, which they would then take back into the desert with them. So,
what were the maybe we can call the staple food that they used to eat there? Maybe the food that is common there, because for example in Kenya you can say ugali, mchele, chapati. So there, what did you used to eat?
Okay, well, there are two answers to that. The staple for desert nomads is camel's milk. Okay,
right.
So that's what they get free living in the desert. So they will go maybe 3 months of the year. They go to the deep desert pastures, which are called the juzu, and they'll stay there and they'll just live on. This is mainly it's the men who do this. They will leave their families behind, and they will just live on camel's milk. So no food, no water, just camel's milk for 3 months. You know, so that's it. And camel's milk is very, very nutritious. It has all the vitamins you need, even vitamin C, apparently. You know, and I wondered this because the nomads never eat vegetables. They never eat, or very rarely anyway, eat vegetables. They very rarely eat fruit, and yet they're very, very healthy. And they told me it's the camel's milk. You know.
Wow. So you can try home. Yeah. You can try camel's milk home. Yeah, maybe.
But apart from when they were in the deep desert pastures, they would eat asida, which
Yeah.
is this like
The
ugali.
kind of
and that
ugali,
would-
yeah, right.
yeah, it's like ugali, but they would serve it with camel's milk. So that was really their staple. This ugali-like, excuse me, ugali-like pudding, which is called, they call asida.
Asida, yeah, right. Maybe as we go on, can you please share with us some specific events or like experiences that deeply impacted in your life when you were living with the nomads?
Yes. Once I was traveling in the deep desert. I was coming back from a trip to the deep desert with one nomad companion, and we came across this lone tent in a wadi. That's a lugger, a watercourse. Yeah. And that was a little bit odd because most of the nomads at that season had moved south, and they usually camped together. It wasn't usual to find just one tent. These tents were made of goat and camel's hair mixed together, by the way. They were made by the nomad women themselves. And we found this tent. There was a family there, a man and two young boys and a girl who was slightly older, his wife, and so on. A small family, and they brought us food, they welcomed us, they brought us asidas, they always did. And as we were eating, we asked them, well, why are you still here? Why didn't you move south with the rest of the clan? And the head of the family, whose name was Rai, said, well, we didn't move because we've lost all our animals. They're all dead. There was a drought at that time, and their animals had all died. The goats and the camels were all dead. And so they didn't even have camels to move their things, their tents and the family, further south. So we immediately said, well, you can use our camel. I mean, we only had 2 camels, but you can load your stuff, your tent and so on, onto our camels, and we'll help you move. And they wanted to move somewhere. It was about 3 days' journey to Ray's brother-in-law, his wife's brother. And they wanted to move to that camp, so we helped them move. And so on the way, I had quite a good opportunity to talk to him. And the first thing I noticed was he didn't seem really upset, and I thought, well, you seemed happy enough. I thought, well, somebody who's just lost all his animals. And I thought, for a nomad, that must be like going bankrupt, you lost all your sort of capital.
True, that means like it's like all your wealth is
all your wealth
is
gone, yeah.
True.
So, but he seemed cheerful enough, didn't seem really sort of sad about it. So I said, you don't feel, sad, you lost all your animals. He said, well, of course I do. But he said, I'm not worried because when I get to my brother-in-law's camp, he will give me a camel, or give us a camel for everyday use, like